everybody, this is Carrie Shirley with Gas Powered Thoughts. This is going to be the last segment of the Gas Goblin build. In this segment we're going to finish final completion. We're going to get the canopy prepared to install and install it. There is some work to be done there. We're going to put a muffler on the motor. We're going to plumb the fuel tank, and we're going to get the main blades put on it. When we're done with all that, the mechanical part of the construction will be finished. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do here in this final step is to put some sort of muffler on the engine. There's a lot of choices on the market today. The Zenoa motors come with their own steel canister muffler, which you see here on the right. It's pretty lightweight. It's incredibly loud. Not something that really looks very good on the model, and it certainly doesn't sound good. A lot of people use them. I don't use them at all. Here's a couple other options which I have used. In the center is the Century Torpedo Slim. It will bolt right on. It'll fit the model without a problem. It's not as loud as the canister muffler. It's still fairly loud. The muffler that I normally use and will use in this model is the Hattori. In this case it's the SAB12R2. This is the new isolator mount muffler. It mounts the same way it does on the Glow models with isolator. Again, any of these will work. Your preference is of course what you should use. I'm going to show you how to put the Hattori on. Okay, the first part to putting the Hattori muffler on is to put the mount on. This used to be the second heaviest muffler available, and because it's now been made into a two-piece muffler, it's now the second lightest, but it's also one of the quietest. So this plate bolts onto the motor with two bolts. It uses this kind of standard Hattori O-ring system. These are Viton mounts. The muffler itself has these isolator pillars on it with bolts that go through there. So this simply goes over the O-rings, seats on, and you tighten down the 4 bolts, and that'll secure the muffler. All right, here you can see the muffler's been installed. It's all tightened up. It fits quite well on the model, and it actually looks good too. Most of the weight is centerline with the main rotor. So from a weight perspective, it's a good fit as well. We're going to finish plumbing the fuel tank now. As I indicated earlier, we put 2 fittings in the tank. One is for the return line from the primer on the carburetor, and the other is for a vent line. Now, this tank is hard enough to use a one-way vent if you want, which I showed in an early step. You do have to plumb the model slightly different if you use that one-way vent. You have to include a fill line. And I don't want to do that here, so I'm going to use the sort of typical coiled loop, if you will. It's just some fuel tubing that's been coiled into multiple loops. We're going to connect that to the vent line, and then the other end of it's going to go out the bottom of the model. And we're going to use standard Tygon to plumb the carburetor return, which is going to run through the frame and come back to the return line on the carburetor. Okay, I've installed the vent line and the return line on the fittings on the front of the tank, and I'm going to run those beneath the tank and through the brace that sits on the frame. The vent's going to go out the bottom. The return line is going to come out next to the fuel feed line that we installed earlier. Goes to the primer fitting on the carburetor, and I've also installed a fill tube here. With the coil tube in place, all you need to do to fill the fuel tank is remove this plug and fill it up. If you put the one-way valve in, you'll need this line, plus you'll need one more line as a vent, because the one-way doesn't let fuel go in, it only lets it come out. This is a little easier to do. I also use some Velcro here to secure the fuel line, just makes it look a little neater. With that, the fuel system is fully in place. The conversion uses the standard Goblin canopy. It's a fairly large canopy and it fits the frame very tightly. So we're going to have to make some modifications to this canopy so that they fit the frame and the new layout. Primarily we're going to make some changes on the bottom here. These are the most significant changes. We've got to cut a couple of slots, and you can see it's one on each side and they actually angle in a little bit. This is because the bottom of the frames actually protrude down a little bit more than they did with the electric. So we've just got to cut those. On the left side we've got to cut this little notch, and the canopy goes pretty far down the side of the frame and it actually would interfere with the throttle servo. On the right side we're going to cut this rectangular notch to address the air deflector. So those are the changes you need to make. Now that the canopy is all modified, we can go ahead and install it on the model. It installs just like it does normally. Slides under the canopy slots in the front and then attaches to the canopy mounts in the back. In this case I've used RC Booyah connectors. And you want to see why we made the slots in the bottom of the canopy. It's because the front of the frame actually protrudes through them as you see here. So it's just for clearance. The other two cutouts, one was to clear the throttle servo. You can see it goes around the servo arm on the left side of the model. And the cutout on the right side of the model is to provide some clearance around this air deflector. This just makes sure that all the hot air gets out from the motor and doesn't collect in the canopy. The cutout just helps the canopy clear the little deflector that we had installed earlier. Last thing we're going to do here is install the rotor blades. They install in the normal way, nothing special here. Use the blades of your choice. Just make sure they're sized properly for the motor you've chosen to install. That topic's a little outside the scope of this video, but having the properly sized rotor blades to fit your power system is one of those critical things to having gas helicopter success. Well, that's it. The Gas Goblin's built, ready to fly. Hope you've enjoyed the series. Please visit Gas Powered Thoughts if you want to see the complete build series on this model, other models that we've built, and general information about gas-powered helicopters. Till next time, see you later.